Okay, so good. So in spite of the title, you imagine I will not develop the building of golf as it would take 2 or 3 hours, but I will just resume in a few words for my first part of the talk. And this will not effectively will be the reality, but it will be the reality convolved by what I feel must be the spirit of the day. And it is so simple, in fact, because when Alan arrived at Verrières-le-Buisson, he has in his attaché case 2 drawings. One was the logo of the future institute, and as long as Alan is with us, I will keep this logo in my presentations as well with the new one. And then the second drawing in the attaché case was this one. It was the drawing of the golf instrument. And if you are not sure of that, just notice that it is English terms here. So it is a proof for me. It could have been people from the States like Roger Ulrich who worked with us, but if you look at the numbers, they are centimeters and not inches. So to me, it's a proof that it comes from Alan. So then from the drawing to the building itself, so I said it was easy. In fact, Alan took his phone and called scientists and engineers, technicians in some labs. IAS, Observatoire de Côte d'Azur, Service d'Astrophysique NCE à Saclay, Bordeaux Observatory, Instituto de Astrofísica de Canarias, UCLA in the States. I think these were, we needed people to play the advocate of the devil, somebody who would say, it will never work. You will only observe fringes in the filters and not solar signals. But in fact, he said. So this is what we reached, and Alan was the boss of all these teams. And some of them are in this room today. We did the jobs very well. And as far as I am concerned, it was a great honor for me to work on the sodium cell itself. As for me, it is the heart of the instrument, the little cell here, which has been working now for 16, 70 years, and it's still working, so, okay. And I will not tell more about the golf building itself. If someone is interested, then we will talk of it in another place. Of course, I prefer to confirm my caution that any resemblance to persons living or dead, or to scenery, is not purely accidental, but the details were somewhat different as what I just described. And in fact, I prefer to, in the spirit of today, to concentrate on what to me is one of the most original, or no, the most original contribution of Alan to golf and to helioseismology itself. It is the parallel that he felt between atomic spectroscopy and helioseismology. And so this resulted in one paper here, so the application of Fano profiles to explain asymmetric resonances in helioseismology, was the most fundamental work where with his fellow, his friend Jean-Patrick Conrad, and with 2 students, Sarah Thierry and Sabrina Thierry, and myself. I was not maybe a student any longer at that time, but no matter. So the purpose of this paper was in fact is resumed in that sentence. The objective was to deal with the parallels between the asymmetric resonance profiles as observed in global helioseismology and the Fano theory for the auto-ionization profiles in atomic spectroscopy. With thanks to SOHO instruments in helioseismology, the signal to noise was so nice that we could observe asymmetric profiles in the power spectrum, which in fact come to surface new physical properties, new topics of interest, and that is an example of a spectrum we obtained. It's not golf at this time. It is the MDI because it is the asymmetry profile is more obvious. So we have here the frequency, and here the power spectrum of the signal, and we see easily the family of the peaks for very high degree modes. So modes which has a small surface structure, small spatial structure around the surface. And then we may approximate the profiles in the spectrum by such a formula here, where let's just remind that B is a dimensionless parameter representing the asymmetry of the profiles themselves. Then, on the other side, atomic spectroscopy. This is an example of a Rydberg series of atomic spectra, and for which the expression comes from the famous, it was not famous to me, but famous Fano's expression. P of epsilon is like that, where Q is something like that, linked to a transition matrix. And then, for me, as invisible as Obelix is always hungry, the two expressions have an identical form. And that's what Alan felt, because immediately he was not very satisfied by this expression derived for seismology. And in fact, Alan noticed that the Fano expression is formally the same than the helioseismic one if we suppress the term B squared on the non-correlated background. Non-correlated background, which in fact is something which had been added by the helioseismic community to take into account the reverse of the sign of the asymmetry when seismic modes are observed either in intensity or in velocity. And then, as far as Fano is concerned, the asymmetry sign reversals come naturally from the system itself, from the physics itself, and it was not something which had been added just because we needed it. So I wonder why did Alan think of a parallel between helioseismic signal and atomic spectroscopy? So it was just because, as I said a minute ago, Alan was not happy with the seismic profile formula. I remind you the formula itself. So we have an introduction, physical introduction ad hoc, just ad hoc of a correlated background, something in a continuum at the level of the sun, which is being said correlated with the excitation of the signal itself. And then formally, this expression is just derived through an expansion in small quantities, and so it neglects higher order terms, which result in the validity very limited of this formula. In practice, this formula could just been applied at the immediate vicinity of the resonance, very close to the core of the resonance profiles, which is for us a problem when we want to fit and to derive parameters for the whole spectrum. And then it addresses also the questions. So the B2 squared term here, to which physics does it correspond, in fact? And it was effectively, this always perturbed Alan when he dealt with this seismic power spectra. And of course, Alan was more interested in which physics was behind this formal parallel, in fact. And this is an extract of what we wrote in the paper. And in fact, these both situations, atomic and seismic, can be thought of as arising through the mixture of coincident stationary states, one arising from a discrete resonance, the other a continuum in the atomic spectroscopic language, which is equivalent to background noise in the present-day terminology of helioseismology. And I felt that Alan was the only one which could be aware of that, and which would have the willing to go further and to go deeper in the physics on both sides. And then in the paper, we show that the underlying physics of the interaction of a discrete resonance with a correlated continuum is common to both systems. We reached it. And then, so what can we conclude for helioseismology from this work? We could effectively conclude that the additional term B squared is unnecessary, so we can drop it, and that the formula is fundamentally valid on the whole frequency range, and so can be used to fit all modes together with the assumption, that, thanks to the fact that this allows us to predict which resonances will interact with which continua and with which other resonances. So being aware of the properties coming from the atomic spectroscopy, we are able to fit correctly all the modes that we observe in our power spectrum. 1 minute? Okay, so it's not finished. Let me finish with my last part about more Alan. So I wonder whether if this work came from perseverance or from obstinacy. Rephrase the question: is Alan an artist? Saying that the art of making people believe he's persevering while in fact he's obstinate. L'art de faire croire de la persévérance alors qu'il est en fait complètement obstiné. It could be the opposite way, but I prefer this way. And I guess that is probably a subtle mixing of both things. And then I converged to define a new word. Alan is the only one at the moment, but probably there are others. So either in English, either in French, both converge to the word obstiverance. The accent can be different, but for me it's obstiverance will fit very well, Alan. So, and now, let me go on with the revelation. No, what? Some students, they are not here today, gave a nickname, sometimes, not always, but sometimes, to Alan, idefix. He had a fixed idea, it's always in his mind. And so idefix, you know that it is the name of the dog in Asterix, bande dessinée. And though I had a look on the English translation, it is dogmatics. So for me, it's not the same thing. Dogmatic, Alan is not a dogmatics. Idefix is not. It is obstiverance, not dogmatism. So I would say, once again, English people sometimes do not translate very well what is the feeling. So to come back now and to conclude, let me come back to the title of the talk. Building goal for me, for me it was in fact building a relation with Alan and with I would say with Gabriel, oh lovely fellow, and well, that's it. And let me thank you, Alan, for that, and let me offer you some present because I have imported a sample of potion magique from Brittany, from the north of Brittany. And it is written potion magique, and it is effectively, you can check, and it is written pour éleveur de coude. So, Alan, you will translate for the Brits, and John will translate for the statesmen. J'ai un message de la part de Maryse Chara. Yes, excuse me. I have a message from Maryse Chara, who cannot be here today. It's in French. Well, I will read it in French to translate as perfectly as possible what she said. Cher Alan, je n'ai pu être présente aujourd'hui pour cette certainement élogieuse célébration, mais sache que je suis par la pensée de tout cœur avec vous tous. Et j'essaierai de me consoler devant une de ces spécialités culinaires toulousaines qui ont toujours agrémenté nos essais instrumentaux, entre autres ceux de golf, bien sûr. Nous avons passé pas mal d'années côte à côte. Et pour contribuer à la réussite de cette mission SOHO, quand je dis nous, je veux parler de ma famille, mon mari, Jacques, et mes enfants. Mes enfants qui, au début du projet, quand tu appelais à la maison, nous passaient le téléphone en disant « Je crois que c'est Alan ». Quelques années plus tard, il disait « C'est Alan », grâce à cet accent si reconnaissable que tu as si bien conservé. Me reste en plus de tous ces souvenirs, celui particulier du jour où Jacques, au retour d'une de ces nombreuses missions que vous avez effectuées, donc Jacques a sorti de sa valise ton pantalon de pyjama, oublié dans ta chambre d'hôtel. Ça, c'est la version officielle, m'expliquant qu'il serait gêné le lundi suivant en te le rapportant dans ton bureau directement. Alan, merci pour tout ce que tu m'as apporté dans cette collaboration. Et les enfants se joignent à moi pour te transmettre notre amitié. Maryse. Ciao.